Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's main event, the Eating Leather Podcast, sanctioned by the Sports Narrative Network. Let's meet the combatants. In this corner, weighing in at a svelte 300 pounds, Brian, the Paper Champ Henning. And in this corner, weighing in at 195 pounds, your host and cruiserweight champion of the world, Dynamite, Darren Boy.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are here at the Sports Narrative Studios. And oh, look, my camera is already frozen. I love it. As we are here talking with you, and we've got on our special guest here. More from Darren and Brian in just a moment, as we'll get them up and running here. But without further ado, I'm your host, Jeff Bowers. We will get things started. Uh-oh, I have a dog hitting the wires. See, this is what happens when Rosie's at my feet. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, here we, there we go. Camera's working. Everything's up and running. Here we are. So now, without further ado, we will bring on Darren and Brian in just a second. But I must first introduce our special guest, as we have joined with us. Welcome back to the Eating Letter Podcast. With over 50 years of sports television experience, a play-by-play man of Hall of Fame credentials. You know him from Showbox and Championship Boxing on Showtime Network, as well as his big, giant fall slate of West Coast football, basketball, all the play-by-play work. He is an absolute monster. You can see in the background there, from beautiful Sausalito and San Francisco, a member of the International Boxing Hall of Fame, as well as many other honors. And, of course, don't forget, former writer of the Out of My Mind column in the Marin Independence Journal. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the great, the San Francisco treat, Barry Tompkins. Barry, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fine. It's great to be compared to Rice-A-Roni.
That's what I was going for, right off the top. That's exactly what I was going for. So, I just saw that you ended your column back in March for the Marin Independence Journal. Was that sad? Was that taking something off the plate? What was that exactly?
Yeah, it was. They were the irony is now they want me to do a sports column, which quite frankly, I'm not as interested in as doing the humor column that I was writing, because it was just so out of my arena. You know, I enjoyed doing something that was really different, really kind of new. So I did it for 16 years, and they were in a budget crunch, and because I was a freelancer, I wasn't the staff guy. I was the logical choice to be plucked. And so now they want me to come back and do a sports column, which I'm probably going to do, but I'm not as excited about it as I was doing the humor column for all those years.
You know, you got to have those other outlets. You know, you can't just be a sports guy. You got to do other things. So.
Oh, exactly. Well, you know, and it is true. I stopped being a sports fan once I started doing network television. You know, you can't do a game and have any kind of a rooting interest in who wins or loses the game.
100%.
So, and I've always had interest beyond sports. You know, sports is my job, but quite frankly, I don't remember the last time I paid to go to a game of any kind, you know. So writing this humor column was kind of an escape. You know, it was just kind of the world as I see it, you know. And
absolutely.
It wasn't. The Marin IJ is not a huge paper. It's about 200,000, circulation. So, which by newspaper standards now, I guess that's pretty good.
I was going to say, that's like New York Times level. You know, and I was just going to say, it's so funny how sports gets us into a business like this. And then as we're, huge sports fans as a kid and doing all this stuff. And then once you're in it, it loses the magic the closer you get to something, it feels like, right?
That's exactly right. I always know when I get out of a game or a fight or anything else, if half the people tell me I was rooting for one team and the other half tell me I was rooting for the other team, I know I'm okay.
100%.
But you really can't. I can honestly tell you, I really haven't I haven't cared who's won anything, fight, game, whatever it is. There's certain people that I like, that I hope they do well, but it doesn't have anything to do with winning or losing. I really don't care. I always kid about it, but it's kidding on the square. When I get off the air, my two thoughts are where we're going to eat and what time's the flight.
and that's the funny thing about it. It's a job, right? It becomes your job, and it's just like any other job. You go in there, you want to do a great job, but you it may not be the passion that it is for all of those fans watching and all of that stuff. So for sure.
No, that's exactly right. And you guys know this. I mean, you're all in the business, it's people always ask me or tell me, God, you got the greatest job in the world. You got to go to this event, you got to go to that event. And there was something to it. I mean, I've done a lot of, I've been lucky enough to do a lot of major events in my life. And, just to be able to say that, I did Wimbledon for 15 years or the French Open or whatever it happens to be, all the championship fights. Yes, it's nice. But as you guys know, the easiest thing that you do as a broadcaster is go on the air and do the game or the fight or whatever it happens to be. It's all the prep work prior to that allows you to do what people recognize you for.
1,000%, Barry, 1,000%. So, okay, I'm going to hand it off to these boys for boxing in a minute, but I'm hijacking this thing to start because, of course, as a West Coast guy, maybe the second most famous West Coast play-by-play guy behind, of course, the passing of the great Vin Scully. Did you know Vin? Did you ever cross paths with him? What do you know about him?
I did know him, and it's high praise to say I'm second to Vin because Al Michaels was around, Dick Enberg was around for a long time. I can't even begin to tell you how many great broadcasters there've been out here on the West Coast. So
absolutely,
I'm honored just to be in that number. But yeah, I did know Vinny. I got to know him really more because my son-in-law was his producer.
Oh wow, so, that's awesome.
Yeah, so he actually saw more of my grandkids than I do, and so I would always go in whenever he was just kind of go in and pay my respects, just because he was the ultimate professional. I mean, and the story I always tell about him, and this is just what he's all about. So I went in, and this was just the year he retired, just 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And they were playing the Giants here, and I went into the booth just to say, hey, how you doing, Vinny? How are you? And he's always been really gracious, and we were chatting, sitting, talking, and we're about 2 or 3 minutes into a conversation, and he said, "Oh, just a minute, I got to do my open." Well, his open is 3.5 minutes long, and he's got about there's probably a half a dozen must hits, where he has to say the right thing to follow the right video. One is the scene set, what a beautiful day it is and which way is the wind blowing and what's the view like out on the bay and
absolutely,
where's the sun setting and all that sort of thing. And then he's got the starting pitcher for both teams and one hitter from both teams. So he's got 5 things that he's got to get to. So he says to me, "Oh, just a second, let me do this open." He puts the headset on and he does 3.5 minutes, hits every one of his must hits perfectly, and he's out on the last second. He puts the headset down and says, "So, we continue our conversation."
Amazing.
And that was at 86 years old or 87 years old, whatever he was, just before he retired. So he was the consummate professional. I mean, any of you have done that, that's not the easiest thing to do just off the top of your head. And well, not that it was off the top of his head, but there was no script.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he just did it, and he's done it so many times. He knows how long to talk about a particular player and how long before he comes on camera at the opening shot. And, and he always, as a broadcaster, and we might have talked about this before, but you only get so many chances, to say the right thing at the right time in a big moment,
Right.
And I've always said, if you can get 40% of the time, say the right thing, you're way ahead of the game, where you can walk out of the booth and say, I couldn't have done that any better, And I would say Vinny got about 80%.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
that's just how good he was, He was speaking.
And,
I mean, his call, I'm sure you all heard it after he died because it was played 1 million times, but his call of Hank Aaron's record home run
absolutely
was one of the most brilliant calls I've ever heard.
Yes.
He got the political significance, the social significance, and the moment itself.
100%.
And he let the crowd play,
and
which is imperative.
That was just what I was about to say. Learning to lay back. You know, the other one, of course, the big famous Kirk Gibson home run, and it happens,
Right.
and he just lets it sit, man, and it's perfect. And of course, you know, that's the big difference between the radio days and television, and letting those pictures tell the you know, and all of that, and I'm sure that's something for you that, like, over that time is something you kind of learn to adapt to, because you were probably trained by a bunch of old radio guys, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, I was. But even the radio guys that I used to work for a guy named Don Klein, who I doubt nationally any of you know, but he did the 49ers here for a long time. He did Stanford football and basketball for a long time. And he was my mentor. He hired me, put me on the air for the first time. I had no experience at all. And he taught me, really, to this day, everything that all the fundamentals that I know about play-by-play. But even though he did radio, he still let the crowd play. And that's just a given now. You have to do that, you know, and that's the problem, quite frankly, in my opinion, with a 3-man booth. Yes. I hate a 3-man booth, you know, because there's no dead air. There's no air. There's no time to breathe, you know, and unless you've got, I'm not saying 3-man booth can't work, but it's rare that it does, because it's just as important to know when not to talk than when to talk.
Exactly. And having that color man who knows how to jump in there, how to let you do your craft. Like, I know that's very key. And I mean, you've been blessed to work with some of the greats as well. So that's amazing. All right. I have one last non-boxing question, then we'll get into this boxing stuff. You know, I'll let these actual hosts talk.
I hate boxing.
I know, it's just, you know, let's talk West Coast. Okay, let's talk about the Pac-12, Barry. Like, what are we going to do about this thing? Our pets' heads are falling off. Like, what are we going to do about this thing, Barry?
You know, I honestly, I wish I had an answer for you. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't think there are too many people around that do.
Yeah.
There's a writer out here, John Wilner, who's as close to the Pac-12 as anybody can be, especially in this day and age. Now, it's not like it used to be, you know. And when I started doing the Pac-12, it was still kind of a mom and pop shop.
Right.
So you know, I could walk into the commissioner's office and have a cup of coffee any day I wanted to, you know. And now, like everything else, there's layers, you know.
Of course.
Very corporate.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I find it hard to imagine that they can survive without the Los Angeles market. You know, they talk about San Diego State, and San Diego State, they draw people, they have a big crowd, and it's within 100 miles of Los Angeles. But I don't think that's going to replace SC and UCLA. And then I got to deal with Washington, Oregon, you know, because they're powerhouses, you know, and
exactly,
you know, Phil Knight, who runs the University of Oregon, basically, you know, the Nike guy.
Yeah.
He's not going to sit back and let everybody else take all the revenue, you know.
Oh, 100%.
So I don't know. I don't have high hopes for it continuing. Certainly, it's not going to continue as it is. I'm not sure it's going to continue at all.
And, you know, that's the fascinating thing, because, of course, down here we're in Texas in Big 12 country, and, you know, we just got robbed of the top 2 teams, too. So it really feels like, you know, are these guys just going to get together and with a shotgun marriage and try to throw it all together? Or, you know, I mean, I just can't imagine how this is all going to work. But, you know, it's a crazy landscape.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
I think we're headed to basically one power. It won't even be a conference. It'll just be a division of college football. I saw a thing recently, just in the past week, saying something about there's a move afoot to take college football away from the NCAA altogether.
Yeah.
And make it be its own entity. And I can see that happening. And I can see, you know, 4 conferences of 10 teams apiece, you know, and they're all a power team, you know.
100%.
You know, I mean, there's a lot going on. I mean, without getting into this whole thing, I know you guys want to talk about boxing, but, you know, the whole NIL thing is, that's just growing like Topsy, and it's guys are going to the highest bidder. It's just that simple, you know.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So it takes me back to many years ago. I was working at NBC, and the Today Show asked me to go out and do an interview on recruiting. You know, I mean, not an interview, but a series on recruiting.
Yeah.
So I wound up actually in Texas at Texas A&M.
Oh.
And a guy named Shelby Metcalf was a basketball coach at Texas A&M.
Yes, sir.
And Shelby was a really funny guy, real Texas boy, and a really funny guy. And so Shelby said to me, I asked him about recruiting violations, and Shelby said, he said 95% of the country, basketball coaches in this country don't violate any recruiting standards, which led to the obvious follow-up question of what about the other 5%?
Uh-huh.
And he didn't miss a beat. He said, they're nationally ranked.
Boy, that is the truth.
And that's what's happening now. You know what I mean? Whereas before the money used to be under the table, now it's over on top of the table, but there's still under the table money to make it a little bit richer.
Oh.
There's a quarterback here, a kid out in the Bay Area now who everybody in the Pac-12 and certainly California, which has been down in football for years.
Yep.
He's right in their backyard. I mean, he goes to high school like, a mile and a half from the Berkeley campus. He's going to Miami. He's a top 5-star quarterback. He's going to Miami. Now, why would he possibly go to, okay, I could get it. I can understand it. If he goes to Alabama, if he goes to Clemson, if he goes to Ohio State or Georgia, but Miami?
Yeah.
He's going for the money.
Well, when you saw Dion get that kid at Jackson State, the number 1 quarterback recruit in the country, that's when everybody kind of went, uh-oh, what are we doing here?
Exactly. It's great for, it's the rich get richer. It's great for, you guys are in Texas. It's great for Texas.
Maybe.
Texas A&M, they're amongst the biggest bandits.
Yes, exactly.
And so it's going to be those teams, Georgia, I'll probably forget a couple, Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, every year. That's what it's going to be. USC will be there. Oregon will be there. But, schools like, again, I can only speak for where I am, Cal and Stanford or I was going to say Texas Tech, but they're bandits also. But,
you don't get that good basketball without
school
it.
In Texas. I can't. Maybe it's Lamar Tech. I don't know. But,
exactly.
But it's just going to be the rich get richer, and everybody else just has to fend for themselves.
And what kills me, I think, more than anything, is that what the Rose Bowl has become. It was always just this incredible, with the history and the Big Ten and the Pac-10 and even before that, just all those days. And now I don't know what they're going to do. If all the schools are now in the Big Ten, there is no Pac-12 or whatever they're going to end up being. Like, I don't know how this works. I guess they just join the playoff and do their thing.
I don't know what they're going to do. Well, they're already all the bowl games are watered down already because of the playoff system.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And what were there last year? Like 60 something bowl games. If you're 6-6, you're in a bowl game.
Yep.
And I can't speak for you guys, but I can honestly tell you, I didn't watch a single one of them. Not one.
Nope.
Not for a minute.
Nope. Absolutely. And we
so
do
it's
NFL
all the sponsors, and they get a little bit of money, and the schools get a little bit of money, and the coaches. More than anything else, the coaches get another 4 weeks of practice time.
And that's the big thing. And that's the reason that Brian's Nebraska Cornhuskers go to a bowl game at 6-6 every year.
Exactly right.
All right. Without that shot, I'll hand it off to these boys to talk a little boxing. Darren, you're up.
Well, question real quick, non-boxing. How was the Costa Rica trip, sir?
It was great. Actually, it was really nice. The first time I'd been there, and I liked it a lot. Travel is one of my big vices, and I do it all the time. And this one was a family trip, and it was terrific. It was kind of like Hawaii was 40 years ago. It's still, especially when you get away off the beaten track, it's still pretty. I was going to say third world, but it's really not. There's no poverty, nobody's starving, very little unemployment. So and people are friendly, and they're friendly to Americans too. So anyway, here I am doing a travel log.
Maybe
we haven't even talked boxing yet. I love it.
Maybe that's your next column, Barry.
It's greatness.
Yeah, maybe that's your next column.
Living here in Nebraska, it doesn't look too bad out your back window. I wouldn't mind being there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. No, yeah, I'm really. I was born and raised in San Francisco, so I'm a West Coast boy. I lived in New York for 6 years, worked at NBC, and I liked it. I liked New York a lot, but Out here,
Uh-oh. Oh, hang on, Barry.
I went there one time on a Tuesday. I had to go on a Tuesday because I had to do a speaking gig at one of their clubs. So I went in on a Tuesday. The game was Saturday, and I got in there on Tuesday, and people were talking about the game. How about the game? What do you think of the game? And I'm thinking, what game are they talking about? And they're talking about the game on Saturday.
The only game
Here,
in town.
people don't talk about the game until maybe Saturday morning. So I mean, it's a different world out there, and here, people go to the games, but the sun's coming up the next day, and if teams out here, which they are, have been as mediocre as Nebraska's been for the last few years, there'd be 10,000 people in the stands, and to Nebraska's credit, their fans are really loyal, so it's a different breed of cat out here. And all the years that going back to when I first started in local television, I never took it very seriously. I never here. So I'm into the city in 5 minutes, really 10 minutes. And
Very nice.
and yet it's like, it's like being in on the in Portofino, So
Well, you need to make a road trip to cover Brian's Nebraska versus Northwestern next weekend in Ireland.
Yep,
yeah,
0.
that's right. I know, that's great. Northwestern apparently is going to be pretty good this year. That's what I keep hearing.
Yeah, I drink the Kool-Aid year after year, but I've got a good feeling about the team. They brought in 15 transfers, and they've kind of transformed their roster, and they kind of overhauled the coaching staff. So I think there's reason for optimism, but we'll see how it shakes out. It's week 0. They're playing overseas. They might have that European jet lag thing going, and the distractions of being in a foreign country. A lot of those young kids for the first time. So
Right.
yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I think they're well coached. I like the coach a lot. And, they're like Stanford. I mean, they're the Stanford of the Midwest,
Yeah, and to your point about your experience in Nebraska, I mean, I think that's kind of the luxury that we have with being the only show in town or in the state. Sure. Is, I think the fans are almost kind of forced to be loyal. It's not like Texas, where you can switch your allegiance from, the Longhorns to the Aggies to the Raiders. Right. And we've really only got Nebraska football. We don't have any pro franchises. It's just
you got Terrence Crawford in Omaha, sir.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
All right, there's my official trans.
I was going to say, that's a great segue there, Darren.
Yeah, thank you.
Good job. That's a pro.
Barry, did you get to see Usyk versus Joshua fight yet?
You know what? I didn't. I was going to try to watch.
You didn't miss anything.
Yeah, and I was going to try to watch it before I talked to you guys because I figured you'd probably ask about it. But everything I heard, I talked to some people who were there, and they said it was a pretty good fight, actually.
Mm-hmm.
That Joshua fought better than he has, even though he lost the fight.
I had it 116, 112 Usyk. I just thought Joshua's inactivity. He only landed, I think, 100. And Brian may have to help me out. 170 punches out of 430, which is a very low percentage. And then obviously he had his well-documented mental breakdown afterwards with the mic. And today he was on Twitter saying, he's dealing with mental health issues, and prayers for everyone out there dealing with that. Yeah. We understand about that. His career kind of reminds me of Oliver McCall now, where he's there's a name from the past for you, where Oliver McCall had a lot of talent, but just unfortunately mentally had that well-documented breakdown against Lennox Lewis.
Yeah, I hope that's not the case with Joshua. I can't quite put my finger on what it is with Joshua. I did his fight when he lost to Ruiz. It just came out of the blue, and that guy.
285 pounds, and you're like, what the heck is he doing to Joshua?
I think, I remember Mike Tyson telling me one time, I'm never going to know how good I am until I lose. And then he lost, and now we know.
Yeah.
You know,
There you go.
and that could be the same with Joshua. I mean, you got to question his beard now, even though Usyk didn't get him out of there. But he's been whacked a couple of times, and he gets hurt relatively easy.
Yeah.
Now, comparing the heavyweight
themes that
division, I cut you off, Brian. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's fine. I was just going to say, I think one of the underlying themes that I see with Anthony Joshua and all of his fights is I just don't think he has the killer instinct. And I question how much he really loves boxing.
I think that's a really valid point. I really do. Yeah. I mean, it's such an odd sport in that regard, and I've always said, and you guys have been around the sport a lot, and you may or may not agree with me, but as a group of athletes, fighters are probably the least violent people I know, because the only time they have anything to prove is when they're in that ring, and they're not, it's not like football. They're not hiding in armor, not like baseball where they're all covered up. Boxing, it's a pair of shorts and a pair of gloves and you're out there,
Yep.
And that's the time you have to prove yourself. You don't have to prove yourself at a bar room,
Mm-hmm.
And fighters for the most part, I really like them just as a group of athletes. You ask them a question, they look you in the eye, they give you an honest answer. Most of them come from a background where they've lived life, and not an easy one oftentimes, and yet they give thoughtful answers. A lot of them probably have never read a book, but they still give you a thoughtful answer when you look them in the. My wife was a sports columnist for many, many years, and she always said she'd rather work with fighters than anybody else because you get great quotes from them.
Yeah, I don't think they get a lot of coaching and training on PR, so I think you get a lot of honesty from them when you ask them questions.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I don't know why I got off on that.
Oh, I cut you off, Barry. I'm so sorry.
It speaks to your point about not really wanting to be a fighter.
Well, my follow-up question, this is from the great Sean Newman, who's a big fan of the show and jumps on every now and then. He wants to know, compared to the heavyweight scene in the 1970s and 1990s, what do you think of today's 2022?
Hold up. Reconnecting. Shh. All right.
Holmes was a really big fight, but I think Usyk, Joshua probably would have been a bigger fight had it have been here or even in London for that matter. But because it was so far away and boxing has changed. Boxing back in the 80s when I was doing it at HBO, it was still something of a mainstream sport. But now it's a niche sport, and I don't think any of us in boxing can hide from that. I mean, that's just what it is. I got to tell you, I didn't watch the Showtime fight last night either. I was busy doing something, but I could not find who won the fight, and it's definitely not in my paper out here. And it wasn't on ESPN on there. ESPN did not have that fight on their website. So I had to search for who won the fight. And I realized it wasn't a huge fight, but it was a title fight of some sort, So I don't know. I just think the sport has, it's a niche sport. That's all I can say, and fight fans are really, really into it and really care about it, but they're in a great minority. I mean, I think it's only, I don't know what the percentage of boxing fans are. I don't know if that's ever been figured out, but the fans are ardent fans, the ones that are. And they're really into it. But I can tell you, I can count the times I've been stopped on an airplane or someplace else in the last 7 or 8 years by a boxing fan.
Wow.
It just doesn't happen. I mean, maybe it's happened 4 or 5 times, but almost never. Yeah.
Well, we're excited. We had Gio Marquez on the other day for an interview, and just such a classy and humble kid.
Great
I call
kid.
him a kid because I'm 48 and he's 21, so it's okay.
He's a great kid.
And we're going to make a road trip down to see him and Raul, hopefully in December. I had some medical issues, so hopefully I could get cleared to travel. And I think he said it on that show, so I can say he's going to fight in Houston in December. So we're looking forward to that. Just so humble. I think he's got
a great kid. He's a
very
great
future.
kid.
And you've interacted with him a lot.
That whole family, Raul's like my little brother, and but his whole family is just, mom and dad are great. All his other kids are great. He's married to a great lady. I can't say enough good things about him. And Gio is the kind of kid, just like his older brother. Gio's older brother was a fighter also for a while, and he was pretty good. I think he was 12-1, maybe 12-0. I don't even know if he ever lost, but he just decided, I'm not going to be a champion, so why should I bust myself up here? And he quit. And I think Gio has some talent. I think he could be very good and maybe be a champion. But I also
love his combinations.
I think he's going to be very good. He's going to get better. He'll get stronger, I think. But I also think he's the kind of kid who would say, that's it, I've had enough. He's not going to be a guy who fights 35 times and loses.
Oh, there it is.
And I keep telling him, put a golf club in that kid's hands, don't put gloves on him. Put a golf club in his hands. It'll serve him a lot better,
Yeah, no risk for CTE in golf.
Exactly.
Longevity.
But no, Gio's, he's a really good kid. I like him a lot. And he comes from good stock, they're going to take care of him. And like Raul, Raul got out of this as good or better than anybody I've ever been around. He saved his money. He's not a street guy. He's a really solid guy. Really solid guy. Can't say enough good things about him.
Yeah, he's so classy. Every time we text, he's so respectful. Just like you, he's so respectful, and it just makes you feel good. And after Gio's last fight Saturday night, when he knocked the guy out in the second round, he was in the gym the next morning. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is dedication right there.
Yeah, no, he is.
All right, Brian.
I think he really wants
to cut you off. I'm so. Brian, it's your turn. Fire away, sir.
Yeah, so another prospect of the show, Xander Zayas, 19-year-old super welterweight, coming off of a 5th-round TKO win against Spadas. I saw the new WBO rankings came out. He came in at number 11 at 154. Have you had a chance to check?
I've had other people like you, and I've heard he's really got the goods. And I've heard it from people whose opinions I respect. I've not seen him yet, so I really can't pass any kind of judgment of my own. I expect I will see him at some point or other, but I can only say I've heard nothing but good things about him.
Yeah, spectacular young fighter, only 19 years old. So if you get an opportunity to tune in and watch a fight, I would definitely do it. He fights well beyond his years. He's really pretty polished for his age. It's pretty.
Where's he from?
Is it?
He's from Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico, yeah,
based out of Miami. I got him as the next Tito. So.
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty high praise.
Yeah, I know. Every time I fall in love with a fighter, they're always winning titles. So he's in good hands. I could not get him booked for an interview to save my life. I went through Top Rank. I've gone to him directly. I've gone to Gardy Lopez and
Really?
Bernie Benassi, whatever his other name is. I cannot get him booked. I'm like, that's my next target. Once he lifts the restraining order, hopefully we'll get him on the show.
Yeah, I don't. You would think a fighter like Gio. Gio recognizes you guys can do him some good. You know what I mean? Because he's getting out to his audience.
Yep.
And most fighters, at least if not them, they're the people around them are pretty good at getting them promoted. So I'm surprised. Is he concerned about his English? Maybe.
No, he's fluent as heck. He's a charismatic kid, and yeah, that was one of my first things. Was like, okay, is he worried about English? No, when you see him interviewed, I mean, he is very polished.
Oh, that's great.
I will get him. It will happen. All right, Brian, I hijacked that segment for a second. Go fire away again, sir. I'm so sorry.
No, yeah, I'd like to just back up a little bit, Barry. So, I did a little bit of research and was reading about you, kind of your days with boxing and winning the Sam Taub Award and boxing with Showtime Sports. But how did you break into the sport? How did you get your comeuppance in boxing?
Like everything else in my life was a complete fluke. No, it's really true. It's funny. I was teaching school at a college here a couple of years, and I stopped doing it because it wasn't anything I really particularly wanted to do. But anyway, I would always tell my students, if anybody ever asks you, "Have you done this before?" There's only one answer. You say yes.
Yes.
And you figure out how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that's how it happened for me in boxing. I was at NBC. I went there. I started here at the CBS affiliate in San Francisco, and I did that for 7 years. And then I went to work at WNBC in New York in the sports department, doing nightly news. But sports department there was pretty good. It was me, Marv Albert, Tim Ryan, and Dick Schaap was the talent.
Wow,
that's some heavy hitters right there.
So and Marv was the guy, there obviously in New York, he's the guy. Period. And but the irony is, all three of us did boxing.
Uh-oh.
The radio rights to the Olympic Games in Montreal, the 76 Olympic Games. And so the question came up, have you ever done boxing? So I said, of course, and honestly, Nathan, what I thought, if you know your left from your right, you should be able to do boxing. Football, you got 50 people you got to worry about, but boxing, 2 guys, 4 arms.
Yeah, how hard can it be?
Yeah. And so I did they had nobody else. So I did boxing at the Olympics in 1976. And that happened to be the year of Sugar Ray Leonard. And, it was the greatest, the Spinks brothers and, the greatest American boxing team in history. So we did a lot, I did boxing and I did track and field at those Olympics. And so I started, and then the other fluke was, I was doing a show in Russia, in Moscow, and it was this eclectic group of people that they put together it was the year of the Russian Olympics. And so they had like the equivalent of a rehearsal for what would have been the 1980 Olympic Games in 1979, and what used to be the Russian National Championships. They invited 100 countries. So it was basically like the Olympics a year before the Olympics. And so it was syndicated in the United States. And so they put together this crew of broadcasters. I was there, and a lot of Win Elliott, I don't know if you remember him, from New York, and Paul Hornink was one of the guys. There was a bunch of who was, you may or may not know, from New York. He was he was Bob's rabbi. He started out Albert, and he was a coach at NBC for a long time. And everybody on the East Coast knew Marty Glickman. He's passed now. And Marty said, we were having dinner one night, and Marty said, I'm working for this little cable company, and we're going to do some boxing, and we're looking for somebody who might want to do it out on the West Coast. Are you interested? I said, yeah. So, because I was freelancing at the time. I still had my NBC contract, but it was just for events. So I said, yeah. And about 2 weeks later, he called me and asked me to do, actually, it wasn't even a boxing match. It was a gymnastics event in Hawaii. And the little cable company was HBO.
Wow.
Oh.
This little company,
Gymnastics thing. They had a collegiate boxing, the National Collegiate Boxing championships. They were at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. And so he asked me to go there and do it and host it with Ray Leonard. So it was me and Ray Leonard were the hosts, and Don Dunphy, the great Don Dunphy, did the blow-by-blow with Larry Merchant. And somewhere along the line during that fight, there was a bunch of fights, but Don and Larry got into a pissing contest of some sort, and they were like, throw the headsets off and ready to go dukes, the two of them. And from that on, I was doing the play-by-play. They had me, go into the play-by-play, and I did it for the next 10 years. So that's how I got into boxing, and that's how I wound up at HBO.
Wow, amazing.
That is greatness. Brian, do you have any additional questions?
Yeah, I was just going to get your thoughts. I don't know if you had seen that, class of 2022 Boxing Hall of Fame inductee class. Some big names in there: Miguel Cotto, Roy Jones Jr., James Toney. What are your thoughts on the class?
All-star.
Yeah.
All-star. It's a shame that they had to do the 3 years in 1 year, because I know, like, when I got inducted, there was, I think, 8 of us, maybe. I can't even remember the number. And even that was a long day. It was like 3 hours, and it was hot, and people are sitting there. And now they had, was it 20-something people, right? 27 people or something?
Yeah, quite a few.
Lot of people. And it's a shame, because I don't think there were so many people that were really worthy of being there and of being named. And I don't know if everybody got their just due. They really didn't have their moment in the sun that they deserved. They did to a certain extent, but not when there's so many people, and it's surreal. I will tell you that whole weekend is surreal. That town, I think, is only 5,000 people. And on that weekend, there's 25,000 people in town. It's just crazy. It's every boxing fan from all over the world that come to it. It's unreal. It's really unreal. Really gives you a false sense of your importance.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, my buddies have been begging me to go up there to the Boxing Hall of Fame and see an induction. I just never been able to make it yet, because
it's really
you
nice
get access.
You
get the VIP tent, get access to all the fighters and everything. And
it's
announcers like yourself.
Every in humor, and the fact that I think if it was in a big city, it wouldn't be nearly as good as it is where it is. The town literally swells to 5 times the size of the town, but yet it's still towny. It's like one of the things they did that just struck me as amusing is they have a parade, where you sit on the back of a car and the streets are like 3 deep, lined with people. It's unbelievable. But while you're waiting to get into the car, because it's hot out, they want to put you in a cool place just so you stay cool, and so the cool place was the funeral home.
Wow.
So we're all sitting there. It was cool. I'll tell you that. It was definitely cool.
Yeah.
So all of us,
Putting you on ice, Barry.
Marvin Hagler was there, and I'm sitting with Marvin Hagler, and we're in his funeral home.
Oh, the greatness.
What are we doing here? Are we that much of a stiff?
That's amazing.
But it's a great weekend. And all the people that you mentioned it was the most noteworthy class, I think, that certainly in the years that I've been around, and I think it was really good.
Were there any notable snubs, or is there anybody that you can think of that's been passed over that you think really deserves to be in there?
Probably if I had to think about it, I'm sure there are, and I'm sure at one point or another I've probably voiced that, but off the top of my head, I don't know, because quite frankly, I can't remember who's in and who's not, other than the obvious ones.
Sure.
So,
what do you have coming up, commentating wise?
Well, I've got a fight next week. Yeah, next week on the.
You should ask your wife.
No, 2 weeks. I'm sorry, on the 9th in Atlantic City. That's a showbox. And then I'm doing something in Florida on the 16th. I haven't even looked at who's fighting. I don't even know who's fighting. That's not a showbox, a Showtime show. then I don't know. It's Showtime and Showbox, particularly the series that I do. It's been kind of hit and miss this year, because there've been so many champ shows, so many championship boxing shows that we haven't been able to get. And now they do Bellator also, so there hasn't been time. We usually do 10 or 12 a year, and I think this year we might do 8, but no more than that.
Oh wow!
So it's you just do what you do, and quite frankly, I've been doing this for so long, and at my age, I'm not really looking for a lot more. I really enjoy working for Showtime, and I like the people I work with. I really miss Steve Farhood. I got to tell you that.
Yeah.
And I like Brian Campbell a lot, but I really do. I think Brian's going to he's already doing really well, but he's a very competent guy. But Steve is one of my best friends, and I really do miss him being around.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, that guy's a pro's pro. I know for sure.
He knows more about boxing than anyone I've ever been around in my life.
And that's saying something right there, Barry. That's saying a little something. Because you've been around a few guys.
And he's got a memory. I mean, he's just, you ask him about, who was the guy that, pick a name, fought, in Atlantic City in 2006. And he's got it, and he's got a file on it, and who won the fight, and how much.
Wow.
It was a popular decision. No, he's one of a kind guy, and very funny, really fun guy to work with.
Oh, I imagine.
That's the other thing in my business. Excuse me. In my business, I've really been lucky in the color commentators I've had in boxing and in every other sport too. I can honestly tell you, there's never been one person that I've worked with. I shouldn't say that there was one, but who I would say, don't ever put me with that person again.
We won't make you say the one.
I've been able to get along with everybody, and even that one person I got along with too. But when as a play-by-play guy, that you could throw anything out there and it's coming back, that's the person you want to be sitting next to. I could go any place. I could go off the wall somewhere.
Yeah.
He's gonna be able to hit it back. And Al Bernstein is like that also. Al and I spent a lot of years together, and he's the same way. And I've had a number of people in football and basketball and tennis. I've been really lucky to work with really good people.
And it's that trust too between.
That's another one of my goals.
Yeah, that play-by-play.
Jeff, I cut you off again.
Yeah, sorry. So I was to say that trust between the play-by-play and the color analyst and just that interplay and being able to do, like you say, it's a trust factor where you throw something out there and he's going to pick it up and run with it. And vice versa. And I think that, not step on your toes and stay in your lane and all that stuff. It's an art form. It really is. It's an interesting dance that you do.
Well, it is. And the truth of the matter is, if you're working with somebody who's not able to do that, now, instead of thinking about what you should be thinking about, you're thinking about, am I going to have to jump in and save it?
Yeah.
If they go on, no, really, if they go off on a tangent someplace, am I gonna be able to get him off that track, or if they lose a word or fump around, which that happens,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So it allows me to do my job when I'm working with somebody like Steve or Al or any one of a number of others, where all I have to worry about is my job. That makes life really easy.
Heck yeah. That's nice. So any of the...
I was going to say, one of my
Darren.
goals is to interview Larry Merchant. I know he's 92, and that would be a amazing interview. I have no idea how to get a hold of him, though, because obviously he doesn't have a social media presence.
Yeah, no, he's in Los Angeles. I'm sure you could find a way to get a hold of him. I'm sure he'd be happy to do your show. Larry he's a one-of-a-kind guy.
Oh, yeah.
He's an extremely smart guy, and he appreciates. I'll tell you the honest to God truth with me. Larry's a hard guy to get to know on a personal level. Professionally he's fine, but on a personal level, he's a very hard guy to get to know. And And I think in his heart of hearts, he's still a newspaper guy, and newspaper people back in that day, when he was writing a newspaper column, didn't much like television people, and I think, frankly, he always thought of him as a television guy, until I started dating my wife, who was a newspaper columnist and fairly well known. So, and all of a sudden, I could do no wrong in Larry's eyes.
How funny.
I was a hero because I was going to marry a newspaper writer, So, Larry, he's and now we're great friends. We have been good friends for many, many years. I don't want you to think we didn't get along, because we always did. But now I can say he's a friend,
That's wonderful.
And
Very
he's
nice.
mellowed. He's really mellowed in his old age too. And I'll tell you what, at 92, if I could be like him at 92, I'll take that. He's pretty active and pretty sharp.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, you say these, with what we've had with obviously Vin and some of these the guys that you think about, like I said, these famous names that have started to kind of pass on and down here in these parts we had the great Pat Summerall, who I got to be friends with, and Pat was so great. Obviously, you probably crossed paths doing tennis and some of the other things you did there.
Yeah, no, we never did tennis at the same time, but I, John Madden was a friend. I got to know him because I used to do the Raiders, and so when he was coaching Raiders, we got to be pretty good friends too. So I met him through John.
Oh, that's great. And Pat was, after he sobered up a little bit, he which he was always open to talk about. But what a professional, what a guy. And again, that interplay between he and Madden, being the stoic and that great voice that Pat had, and then Madden, like you said, you've had some incredible calls yourself, and what would you say, like if they're doing the Barry Tompkins retrospective and they're pulling a couple of the big calls for you, what are we going to be watching on YouTube, Barry?
To be honest with you, that's a hard question for me to answer, because and this is really the truth, like I mentioned before, if you have a big moment and you get it 40% of the time, you're doing pretty good. And I've been lucky enough to have a number of big moments in a few different sports. But honestly, unless somebody reminds me of what it was I said, I truly don't remember. I really don't. I don't know. I can tell you the opposite. I had the call I'd love to have back was I did the 7 lateral game, the Cal Stanford game.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah.
But there were 4 different broadcasts of that game. There were 2 television broadcasts and 2 radio broadcasts of that game. And Joe Starkey, who is the call you always hear.
Yes.
The band is on the field.
Yes, exactly.
He was great. He's a Cal guy. And he just went right through. I saw the flag go down. I saw the penalty flag go down. And I was always taught, if you see a flag go down, keep it, hold it back, don't go crazy.
Right.
So you know what the penalty is, So when I saw the flag go down, I said, wait a minute, flag down now. And I called the rest of the play, but I didn't get crazy, until the referee signaled touchdown, picked the flag up and signaled touchdown. At which time my color commentator, who was doing the game of football for the very first time, and was a Cal guy, was all over the top of me. It was the worst call I've ever done in my life. And whereas Joe Starkey's is great, a career call. I don't know. I really wish I could answer your question better. There were times, like when Mike Tyson beat Burbick to win a title,
Yes.
I felt like I did that okay.
Oh yeah.
The Hagler Hearns first round.
Oh.
I thought I did okay.
Yeah.
Still one of the greatest
I was
things of
gonna
all
say,
time.
maybe the
Yeah.
greatest
Yeah.
one single
Boxing.
round of fighting ever.
Ever.
And
Yeah.
you did pretty well, Barry.
I can't imagine being 3 feet from the ring in that fight.
What's that?
I can't imagine the honor you had to be 3 feet away from the ring in that fight. My God.
It was really special. Yeah. There have been a lot of those kinds of moments. There was a moment after the Duran-Hagler fight that Duran came over to where Ray and I were sitting and stuck his head between the ropes and said, "You can beat this guy." And it was 6 months after that, Ray decided he was going to go fight him.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
Amazing.
there were, I've really been lucky enough to be in a few moments.
Yes, sir.
I've had some times like that. I did the match at Wimbledon that John McEnroe went crazy,
Yes.
Chalk flew up, I did that match and I had Michael Chang when he served underhand to Yvonne Lendl at the French Open.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That brings back memories.
Yeah.
Now-
So look, I've been blessed, Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask you, Barry, when you did a McEnroe event, did you have to talk over to kind of cover up all the choice words that might have bled through the NBC microphones back then, or did you have to talk real loud and kind of do like this?
I will say one story at Wimbledon. Yeah. No, well, it's cable television. You can get away with it.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
But we were, when I used to do Wimbledon at the time that I did it, our position was above court 2, which was one of the outer courts, the show courts for center court and court 1. And, but every now and then we'd have to call a match that was on another court, like 15 or one of the outer courts, especially early in the tournament. So McEnroe was playing a match on court 2, but we were calling a match that was on court 15. I was with Arthur Ashe. And so we're calling this match on an outer court, and it is tennis, so you have to stay kind of quiet.
Right.
Kind of but in the meantime, I'm not looking at court 2, and all of a sudden I just kind of catch a glimpse of court 2, and everybody in the stands is looking at Arthur and me, and McEnroe is screaming at me, because I was talking too loud, and he couldn't concentrate, and I couldn't hear him because I had headsets on. So finally I had to interrupt the match that we were calling, take the headsets off and say, sorry, John,
Amazing.
But
I'm surprised he didn't leave the court and come up and visit you in person with his record.
If I wasn't with Arthur Ashe, he probably would have.
Oh, yeah. That's a good force field to have right there. It's good.
No one would ever disrespect Arthur Ashe.
I've had a chance to work with him, and I've known him for all those years. Away from the court, he's really a pretty good guy. He's the kind of guy you want to hang out with. He's a very smart guy and can talk about a lot of stuff. And I just, and I have to say, the other thing about him on a tennis court was when he went off, he got better.
Yeah.
He became a better player after he went off. And I can't think of anybody else like the guy now, the guy was in the finals of Wimbledon, Kyrgios.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Kyrgios. Yeah, Nick Kyrgios.
He goes off, he gets worse.
Yeah.
He loses it when he goes off. McEnroe, when he went off, got better.
Got him dialed in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That plays with that anger, and boy, he sure did. But one of the greats. Okay, Barry. Here's a better way to ask you this. When you think about some of the greatest athletes that you've ever seen in person, obviously making this call, and you've got a variety of sports there. Which athletes jump to mind immediately as a guy that you're just like, wow, that a human being can do that is amazing?
Well, I didn't do this event, but I had a chance to talk with him at one of the Olympic sports festivals. Was Bob Beamon, and that's a name that not too many people would probably recognize now. Bob Beamon was a long jumper, and in the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City, he broke the long jump record that had been held since 1936. He broke it in 1968. Jesse Owens had the record before him, and he broke it by more than 2 feet.
Wow.
And to me, that was the single most incredible athletic performance ever. I mean, how can you do that? So, I mean, it realizes altitude.
Yeah.
Is altitude going to give you 2 feet more than anybody had ever jumped in the world?
That's amazing.
Almost 10% farther than anybody had ever jumped, ever. So in terms of great performances, I mean, I have to put that right up there.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was 26.6 was the record. He jumped 28.2.
Wow. That's amazing.
It was,
of course,
it was just, anyway.
I was going to say, of course, in this day and age, we'd immediately think that he's juicing out of his mind or something, but
right.
But yeah,
right.
And those times, man, that was
just one of those perfect moments. Yeah. And I think track and field athletes, frankly, maybe the best athletes, and maybe the decathletes, maybe more than anybody else.
Oh,
I hate to say, I mean, this sounds strange for me to say now, but Bruce Jenner was one of the better athletes I've ever seen.
100%.
Yeah.
And any younger audience members of ours are going, "Who's Bruce?
Yeah.
Bruce Jenner?" I mean,
I know his sister
it's Caitlyn
Kristen.
Jenner.
Yeah.
Not realizing, didn't he wear the "Feet Don't Fail Me Now" T-shirt?
I think he did. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. I do. I think track athletes are pretty phenomenal athletes, and I think guys that play in the NBA, you better be a good athlete.
Yeah.
I think NBA guys are really pretty spectacular. What they do.
So what's the fall schedule look like for you, Barry? You doing any football?
I'm not doing football this year because I had at the beginning of the season I had too many boxing conflicts, and and usually I can pick up a scrap here and a scrap there, but I haven't been able to do that this year. So I don't know. I miss it. I really do. But somewhere along the line, I've been doing it for a long time, and the people that I work for now are half my age and getting to be people who weren't even born, when I started doing this stuff. So, it's a different ball game out there now, and I think it's it's almost time to give it to the next generation. Let young people do it. And there's plenty of good ones out there. There's plenty of good ones out there.
I mean, especially with the expansion.
So you're breaking news and announcing your retirement?
No. I'll do boxing as long as I can. I'll still do college basketball, which I really like.
For sure.
But no, I'm not looking to, I'll do 25 or 30 shows this year, which is really not much more than I want to do.
100%.
Yeah,
and at this point, you do get to pick and choose. Now, I was curious if Apple TV or Amazon backs up with a truck full of money, would you be interested in that kind of gig?
Oh yeah, I would take it if they back it up. But the problem is they don't know my address.
Yes.
No, I mean, I promise you, they're not going to hire an 82-year-old play-by-play guy. I can tell you that for a fact.
Well, Michael's got the money. He's
They may hire 3 guys that come up to the age of 82, but not one.
Oh well, they're missing out because Barry, you are one of the greatest. And thank you so much for being on with us. And I'm sure you have to get to dinner now with your wife, or she's going to yell at us. So.
I'll have her come. She does that really well. I'll have her come out here.
All right, my friend.
Introduce her to the show. That'd be great.
Yeah, exactly. She's a sports writer.
Yeah, exactly.
As many big events.
We'll have her on. We'll talk 49ers. It'll be good.
There you go.
There it is. See if Trey Lance has got anything this year. All right. Well, Barry, thank you.
It's always great to talk to you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Barry. And we will definitely have you on again very soon. Safe travels, my friend, and we will have you on again.
All right. Thank you very much. Enjoyed talking to all of you.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, Barry.
Take care, guys.
All right. There he goes. Oh. And there he goes.
That was pure gold right there.
Okay.
Wow. I hope everyone that watches this will appreciate that.
Yeah, that was good stuff. I did not see that long jump coming for most impressive athlete he's seen in person. You really pulled that one out of the bag.
Boys, do you want the bad news? I almost have no video of all of that.
Oh.
We had massive Wi-Fi issues. All of the sound came
that
through.
to me again.
Yeah, all of the sound came through. Almost no video. So, but we had graphics on the screen. We had Barry there in intermittent spots. So I hope that we managed to salvage that thing as best we could. Yeah, that was a little messy on my end.
Yeah, I gotta get you that extender thingy.
Yeah, I'm actually literally gonna go buy it as soon as we're done here. So, yeah, it was a little bit.
Yeah, because you were freezing and breaking up, and I was just listening and try to interject whenever possible.
Yeah, so I hope that came through okay on that end. You guys sounded great. There's only a couple of little drops we had of the sound, but everything came through well. Hey, Brian, how's it going, man? Hadn't talked to you.
Good, man. Good to be back.
Yeah. So let's talk some boxing.
Yeah, man. Life got me a new job and new schedule, and
dude. I get it totally.
How's your son doing? I know he was in the ER.
He's doing good. He's been having like recurrent ear infections for some reason all month, and we were hitting him with the Tylenol and the Motrin and everything, and he was still having like fevers breakthrough of like 102. So we're trying to avoid the hospital. We tried to go the urgent care route, but they said if this has been ongoing for this long, you better take him in. So, and that was a whole fiasco. I mean, like the closest ER is like, it's also our trauma center. So, you know, we're in there trying to get some Tylenol for our kid, and they've got psych patients and DUIs and gunshot victims rolling in there. No. So, yeah, we were there for like 9 hours. For sure. Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
All good though.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
That's good.
So I want to ask you, is the Bud Crawford fight and Errol Spence, is that going to happen? What do you think? What are you hearing on your end?
God, I don't know. You know, the talk around social media seems to point a finger at Bud Crawford kind of being the one getting in the way, but I don't know what it is. And I guess if I had to make an educated guess, I would say it probably has to do with money. I don't think he was a fan of the 70-30 or the 60-40. I think he really wants that 50-50 split, you know, despite people saying that, you know, Spence is clearly the bigger draw, which on paper he probably is.
Well,
that's fair.
And we talked about that
it's
on
probably
our last
just
show.
coming down to money.
Yeah, we talked about that on the last show about how, you know, look, if it's Errol Spence and anybody at Jerry World, he's going to sell the thing out. Whereas, you know, if it's Bud Crawford, he just hasn't been out there enough. I mean, especially because we haven't seen him in so long.
Yeah.
You know, it's been a minute, so
yeah. And I'm not him, but I mean, if I'm Crawford and I've got a chance to make this fight and make a ton of money and you know, unify the division, I'll take the 60-40. You know, I'm fine with that if that's on the table. I don't know why we're fighting for 50-50. You know, I mean, that's coming from a guy that makes a fraction of the money that he does, you know, in a year from one fight, you know,
yeah,
big
100%.
words coming from me. But yeah, if 60-40 is there, I think you got to take it. You know?
Would think so, for sure. Did you watch Teofimo Lopez a couple weeks ago or last weekend?
I did not catch that fight. I saw the highlights. It looked kind of unimpressive. I don't know. People seem to think he's going to be, you know, maybe the name to beat at 140 here going forward. But I question his focus, and I don't know if he's really got a healthy camp behind him. I think his dad is a major distraction, and I don't think that's not a healthy dynamic for his career. I see that one falling apart.
And, you know, we talked about that last week. We kind of mentioned about how, you know, some of these dads that are getting involved with the young fighters really becomes a problem at some point, and you're kind of hoping that doesn't take him down. But, you know, we've seen that happen many times before, and I'm just interested to see your take on that. Uh-oh. Did I lose you?
Yeah, you were cutting in and out. But
oh, yeah.
Are we still in here?
We are. I mean, we're recording it all, but yeah,
yeah, you're right. I mean, speaking of Crawford and father-son combos, I mean, look back at you know, the Crawford-Sean Porter fight, and you know, the controversy of his dad throwing in the towel and calling the fight, and you know, you could see that out of respect for his dad, I think, you know, Porter kind of bit his tongue, but I don't think he really felt like he was out of that fight, and probably wasn't very happy with some of the comments that his dad was making about not training the way he wanted him to train for it, and, you know, ultimately leading to his retirement.
1,000%. I agree. Okay.
You'd love to see it work, you know, the father-son combo, you know, growing up in the sport together and training under your dad. I think that's awesome, but yeah, that's really complicated.
There comes a point when you need to step away, and I think
that's one of the things we asked Gio was, you know, hey, yep.
Go ahead, Darren.
Be your own man.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is there comes a point when you got to step back and do your own thing. Obviously Joshua Usyk kind of played out as you expected. Joshua wasn't active enough, and Usyk hit him enough times to win, outboxed him. Thoughts on if Usyk gets Fury? Do you want to see that fight? Unite the belts?
Well, that's the thing, and that was a question that I had ready for Barry if we continued that discussion with the heavyweight division. But I think Usyk and Joshua kind of played out the way I thought it would. And with the recent retirement of Tyson Fury, I guess my question about the biggest division in the sport of boxing is what's next. What do we have to look forward to if Tyson is truly stepping away from the sport?
Which he
I
is.
think he
you look
unretired
at
late
the
last
top
night on
5,
the
top
Twitter.
10.
I was going to say he's
You
coming
look
back.
at the top
No
5,
question.
top 10 guys. I mean, there's not very many guys that are under 30. Everybody's on the wrong side of 30, and I'm just not sure what the future of that division is going to be.
Well, and you've had this kind of run of the, when you had the Klitschko's and on all of that happening with, that Ukrainian run, and Usyk kind of the tail end of that deal. But again, well into his mid-30s, the young guys that have come up like Joshua or what's the other cat, Darren, that the guy that wore the
Wilder?
Wilder,
yeah, Wilder,
Wilder.
yeah. And none of those guys have shown the chops, the skill, any of that. It's like you say, it's something where it might go back into hibernation, as we've seen it happen too many times before. So yeah, but I would love to see Usyk Fury. I think that would be an amazing fight.
No, I think Fury slaughters him in 3 rounds.
I
He's
do
just
too.
too big.
Yeah. I think Tyson does a lot of the things really well that Joshua probably needed to do to win. And that's, I think Joshua needed to feint a little bit more and a little bit better head movement. And those are all strengths of Fury's. And I think Fury's got a lot more length on him too. I don't see that one being super close if they make that fight.
Yeah, for sure. That was the thing with like Teofimo.
Gentlemen, I'm going to butt scoot up the stairs then. You all have a wonderful evening, and it was a great Tompkins interview.
Yeah, no, I think that was great. Thanks, you guys. Sorry about the technical difficulties on our end. Like I said, I think most of the sound came through, so we're good there. So we will get things out of the way here. So for the incredible Brian, the Paper Champ Henning, thank you for being back. Hopefully we'll get you on here very soon once again and get back in the regular rotation. And, of course, the incredible Barry Tompkins for popping on with us. I am Jeff Bowers. That is Darren Boyd, your congenital host, and we will be back again with more of the Eating Leather podcast this week, hopefully with another big-time interview of a local boxing guy. Until then, be safe, be well, and have a great week.
Your home for sports talk greatness. Contact the show via Twitter @EatingLeatherPod or find us at sportsnarrative.net, your home for sports talk greatness.